this project, we're going to need some scissors, a ruler, some paper. I'm using a square of purple paper. It's 12 by 12. And then I'm using a long piece of brown paper. It's 18 inches long. I'm also going to be using some oil pastels, but you could use crayons, markers, really anything. I'm going to try to find different shades of purples, pinks, and blues. I'm also going to look for some black. I'm going to start off with a black oil pastel and my ruler, and I'm going to make some lines to kind of divide up my paper. I do want my lines to be straight, but they do not need to be perfectly vertical. They can have a little bit of slant to them. I'm making 3 lines that go across my paper. They go up and down. And then I'm going to turn my ruler and make some lines that go side to side, and these two do not need to be perfectly horizontal line. They can have a little bit of slant to them. I just want to have some little sections that are divided up. I'm trying to push kind of hard so that I get a nice solid line with my oil pastel. Again, you could be using crayons or markers or colored pencils for this as well. Now I'm going to start choosing patterns to fill up each section of my paper. So you can do just regular patterns, like here you can see I'm doing some diagonal stripes. So I'm kind of going to vary my areas with just regular patterns, or I thought it would be good to fill some spaces with things that have to do with the season of Lent as well. So I figured crosses, of course, have to do with Lent. So I'm filling this section with crosses in kind of a purplish blue color. And you can see I just want to try to make sure to fill up the area with whatever design I choose. I'm going to jump up here and just do a regular design of dashed lines to fill up this section. I am trying to push down so I get nice solid color. If you wanted to color in a section and then add a pattern on top, you could do that as well, just so that each section has a different color and a different pattern. I am going to use a couple colors multiple times, but I'm trying not to let each of those touch each other. Here I have like what looks like drops. I was thinking it could be like drops of blood for the blood that Jesus shed. I thought it would be a good idea to have some nails, like the nails that went into Jesus's hands and feet. So I was just trying to think of some symbols that had to do with Lent that would work to fill up each of these sections. Here I wanted to make a whip for when they whipped, the soldiers took the whips and whipped Jesus. So I'm just drawing a really simple little rectangle with some lines that curve off of that. And I'm doing it in a couple different directions. All these things that kind of focus on the sad parts of Lent, the suffering that Jesus went through for our sake. I'm going to continue working on that, and as you can see, I have now filled up my page. So I have plants and spheres and clouds, bread, wine, circles, just whatever different things I could come up with. Next, I'm going to be using my large piece of brown paper. I'm going to put all of my oil pastels away because I don't need those anymore. And I'm going to turn my paper the long way, and I need to cut about 3 fingers across a nice long piece of brown. And once I've got it about that large, I'm going to cut it into 3 sections, but I'm not going to cut all the way to the end. I'm going to stop right before I get to the edge so that my edge of my paper is still attached together. And then once I've got my paper with my 3 pieces, each piece is about a finger wide, I'm going to go ahead and start to braid. And it might be easier to take a little piece of tape and tape it down so it doesn't move as much. And the very first braid is the hardest, so once you get it started, it's not so bad. But just trying to get the first little flap done is kind of tricky. So I'm putting one over the middle and then the other outside one over that one. And then I'm taking the middle one. This is the hardest part right here, is getting this middle one kind of folded over. And then the rest should be easy. So I'm always taking the outside one and then putting it in the middle. The outside right, kind of folding it over and kind of smushing it with my finger to make a crease, and then I'm putting it in the middle. The outside left into the middle. So I'm basically braiding paper and kind of folding it each time as I braid. You can see it doesn't have to be super tight, but I do want it to look kind of braided or woven together. And I'm taking this and braiding it down each time, always right to the middle, left to the middle. I can kind of move up here so that you can see it a little bit better as I finish towards the end here. And this is 18 inches of paper, so I want it to be long enough here that I can get a good braid going. And then I run out of space. So this is not quite wide enough to be a crown, so I am going to make a second piece by doing the same thing. I'm going to cut my piece about 3 fingers wide, and it's 18 inches long. And then again, I'm going to cut my strips so that they're the width of fingers, but making sure to stop before I get to the end so that my 3 pieces stay together. And then I'm going to go ahead and braid this the exact same way that I braided the other one. So here you can see I've braided that piece now. So I have my 2 pieces of braided paper. Now this is where you could use tape or you could use a stapler to connect them together. I think a stapler, in my opinion, would work better just because you can't see it as much as the tape. I'm going to just try to kind of set my pieces together, and I'm going to staple them. It really only takes 1 staple, just kind of in the middle of the 2 pieces. Then I'm going to measure kind of what would be good for a crown of thorns. Using the entire length was a little bit too long, so instead I'm going to shorten it, overlap it a little bit more, and staple that in place as well, so that I have what looks like a crown. Now we need some thorns. So to add the thorns of the crown, I'm taking my scissors and I'm just kind of cutting little slivers into some of my braids so that it looks like a little thorn is sticking out. And you can really do it in whatever direction you want. You can kind of start off in the same direction, or you can kind of reverse back and forth, but I'm just finding any pieces that I want to in my braid, and then I'm cutting little slivers out and then kind of folding them back so that they stick out, so that it looks like the crown now has little thorns poking out in different directions. And I'm just trying to find all these different pieces here to fold out to make a crown of thorns. I'm going to go ahead and do this all the way around until my entire thing is full of thorns. All right, you can see I've added thorns to my entire crown. I wanted it to make sure that there were quite a few regarding, or no matter what direction my crown of thorns is laying. Now I'm going to take my background piece that I have fully decorated here with different things of Lent, and I'm going to place my crown of thorns somewhere on my paper, and then I want to find a couple of spots where I can just kind of staple it down to the background. And I don't want to do it in too many places because I want it to kind of pop up in areas too, but I figure maybe 2 or 3 spots where you can staple it in would be good enough to attach it to the paper, and then also just to kind of give it a variety of texture kind of in the way that it lays down. So there I've got it stapled in 3 sections, and I may go kind of back around and make sure that my thorns are all sticking out. At this point I could add some extra thorns too, maybe some in the inside that would kind of poke out towards the center of the crown of thorns, but just whatever it takes to make it to look like the crown of thorns is kind of more realistic, I guess, with the weaving. I had a couple of extra little strips here from my ends of my paper braiding, so I'm just kind of trimming those and making those look a little bit thinner or more thorn-like as well. And there you have the crown of thorns. I hope you enjoyed this Lent project. Please share with me how you felt about making this piece. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.